Coming up on this Monday edition of the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports, I'm Chase Sr. Brock Purdy not listed as a top 10 quarterback in ESPN's positional rankings. That, according to NFL executives, coaches, and scouts, that is their opinion. But I value your opinion, and what say you? If you think Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League, be loud about it. I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and feel free to comment why. If you don't think he's yet a top 10 quarterback, also comment why and explain that reasoning. We're going to dive into it all right now on the San Francisco 49ers Report. Look good, feel good. You know that's the motto for me every single day right here on the Niners Report. And you can approach your life the same way with Roan. Get 20% off going to roan.com/chatsports. Use the code chatsports for that discount to apply at checkout. We'll put all of that information down below in the description of today's show and attached to the pinned comment of today's 49ers Report. So the topic at hand on this Monday, hope everybody out there had a great weekend and your weeks are off to a phenomenal start, is the fact that Brock Purdy was not included as a top 10 quarterback in ESPN's position rankings. How does ESPN and Jeremy Fowler get to this list of who cracks that list of top 10 players at every single position? Here's their process behind that. Voters give their best 10 players at a position, and then ESPN compiles the results and rank candidates based on the number of top 10 votes, composite average, and dozens of interviews with research and film study help from ESPN NFL analyst Matt Bowen. In total, nearly 80 voters submitted a ballot on at least one position, and in many cases, all positions. Additional voting and follow-up calls with those surveyed helped us break any ties. It is NFL insider and reporter Jeremy Fowler who leads this effort every offseason. Just a way to get some offseason coverage for ESPN on the NFL front going into training camp, which rookies report the training camp for the Niners on Tuesday. Purdy, as I noted, not on this list of top 10 quarterbacks. Here are the quarterbacks who are. Patrick Mahomes, atop the list at number 1. 3-time Super Bowl champion, back-to-back Super Bowl rings. Joe Burrow at number 2. Josh Allen at number 3. Reigning NFL MVP Lamar Jackson at number 4. Matthew Stafford at number 5. And then 6 through 10, Justin Herbert at 6. Sophomore player C.J. Stroud coming off a great rookie season at number 7. Aaron Rodgers at number 8. Jared Goff, who Brock Purdy beat in the NFC Championship game, at number 9. And Dak Prescott rounding out the list there at number 10. I have a lot of thoughts on that, and I do believe that Brock Purdy should be on that list of top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. My first takeaway, look, we're in a good spot as NFL fans because oftentimes when we sit down to watch a game, if the number 1 quarterback for those two teams are healthy in that matchup, usually there's a lot of talent there, right? There's a lot of competition to be inside the top 10. Specifically, when I look at the 8, 9, 10 pole positions with Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, that's when I scratch my head a little bit, right? Because Aaron Rodgers didn't play at all last year outside of a couple of snaps, and he was hurt. So how do you have him inside the top 10 when we don't know what he's going to look like at his age, coming off a torn Achilles? Maybe the worst injury that you could have outside of like a neck or back injury. Jared Goff, as we know, is a very limited quarterback who doesn't have the improvisational or extracurricular skills that Brock Purdy has. And don't tell me that Brock Purdy has a loaded supporting cast of weapons and Jared Goff does not, because Jared Goff plays on a really, really good offensive unit, might have the best offensive line in football. Good run game, good pass game, good weapons at tight end and wide receiver. And then for Dak Prescott, he always seems to win a lot of games in the regular season, double digits in his bag, but in the playoffs, he's never made it to an NFC Championship game. Brock Purdy, in a year and a half as a starter, has been to 2, has more playoff wins than Dak Prescott, and made it to a Super Bowl. And it got me thinking, right? when you take a look at that list, shouldn't playoff success matter? Brock Purdy has a lot of it. He's already won 4 playoff games in his career. He's lost really one true playoff game, because I don't count the NFC Championship game against Philadelphia because he didn't finish it. The lone playoff loss he has is against the Kansas City Chiefs, when the Niners time and time again shot themselves in the foot. Justin Herbert, where's the playoff success? So that's another name on top of the names that I mentioned where Brock Purdy could replace those quarterbacks. But this doesn't surprise me at all, because Purdy doesn't pop physically in this social media highlight-driven era, even though some of his improvisational plays, absolutely incredible. And if it were Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson making some of those plays out of structure that Brock Purdy makes consistently all the time, people will be losing their minds and they need a new pair of pants. Furthermore, people won't give Brock Purdy credit because he has a loaded supporting cast, but a lot of the quarterbacks on that top 10 list have a lot of really good weapons. It's almost as if good weapons and a good supporting cast help elevate a quarterback's play. Yet because Brock Purdy, with the lack of physicality that he has as far as stature, with the surrounding weapons that he has, and then the case of draftism, him being selected Mr. Irrelevant, that leads into people just not buying into or not giving him credit for what he does. If Brock Purdy was a first-round pick, people would be clamoring that Brock Purdy is the next star in this league. What I think that Purdy does in an elite way that doesn't necessarily show up in the box score for a lot of casual fans: accuracy, anticipation, timing, processing, and pocket feel. And last year, how do you not have Purdy as a top 10 quarterback when he did all of this in his first full season as a starter, coming off elbow surgery, passing touchdowns, despite the Niners having a pass rate that's 32nd in the NFL since the Christian McCaffrey trade among 32 teams, number 3. Yards per attempt, number 1 by a wide margin. Deep ball completion rate, I thought that he was only a check down merchant. He had a noodle arm, 55.3%, number 1 in the NFL. How about what Brock Purdy does when he's pressured? 63%, number 4 in the NFL. So when he's looking down the gun barrel, Brock Purdy thrives. Red zone completion rate, when the field gets condensed and things are moving faster, 70.4%, that's number 2. True passer rating, QBR, EPA, number 1. Yet his receiver target separation was number 14. Guess who had the best receiver target separation? Patrick Mahomes. Deep ball catchable rate. He has deep ball accuracy. He might not have the bazooka of a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Justin Herbert, but he's accurate in those opportunities. Number 1 in the NFL. Now, coming up next, more reasons for why Brock Purdy could have been excluded by some of the executives, scouts, and people around the NFL. Stay tuned for that. But first, you got to tune into the Niners Report, because we have great deals when it comes down to upping your wardrobe, looking clean, being able to impress your date, and that's Roan. Get 20% off your order at roan.com/chatsports. You can have everything from a golf polo to the button-up shirt that I'm wearing, and I can wear this untucked. I hate long dress shirts because then you can't wear them untucked, or you want to tuck this in, wear it with the suit, you could certainly do that. I have worn Roan's golf polos out on the golf course, and right here in front of the camera with this mic on, chopping it up with my guy, producer Chip, and all of the faithful. So get 20% off your order right now, roan.com/chatsports. All of their clothes, durable, stretchable, breathable, odor-free technology, wrinkle release technology, where the more that you wear these shirts, the more that wrinkles disappear. And I like high-quality material that's not going to fall apart and rip apart at the seam. Don't have to worry about that with Roan. An investment worth making if you want to look good, feel good. Once again, code ChatSports. We'll put that link and all that information attached to the pinned comment of today's Niners Report. What were the reasons that Brock Purdy was excluded from ESPN's list of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL? Analytically, you can see some reasons why Brock Purdy did not crack the top 10 list, even though I think he should be a top 10 quarterback and is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Here's ESPN's reasoning behind it. One of the NFL's best stories, Purdy, last pick of the 2022 draft, is 17-4 as a starter, a near Super Bowl winner, and an MVP finalist. His play is incredibly efficient, with the league-leading 72.8 QBR in his first full year as a starter. He's already on the board with 4 playoff wins. All of this has put him into the fringe top 10 category. It's hard to call him top 10 based on the guys ahead of him, but it's hard to keep him out of the top 10 too. An NFC executive said he willed that team to the Super Bowl, only right to give him serious consideration. As far as game planning, Purdy has more limitations than some of the quarterbacks ahead of him, according to multiple evaluators. He's very good at navigating the pocket, buying time, using his legs. You're not going to win because of him in most cases. A separate NFC exec said he's a really good system quarterback. You knew that somebody was going to throw out system quarterback for Brock Purdy. But how about that quote of Brock Purdy putting the team on his back, leading them to the Super Bowl? I mean, he was one of the big reasons on top of the defense getting it stuffed together why the Niners came back from that second half deficit against the Green Bay Packers and then came back from down 17 at halftime to the Detroit Lions. Give credit where credit is due. That's all I ask in life, whether it's sports or off the field. Give credit where credit is due. And Brock Purdy deserves credit for Kyle Shanahan's offense looking the best that it's ever looked since Kyle Shanahan took over in 2017. Now, there are some areas where Brock Purdy can improve. There are areas where Brock Purdy has to get better because he has struggled a little bit in a couple of key areas as a quarterback in the National Football League, especially last year during his first full season as a starter. First, when the Niners are trailing in the second half the last 2 years, Brock Purdy doesn't play his best football. He's 22nd in passer rating and 33rd in overall rating when the Niners are down in the second half of games. That is partially due to Brock Purdy struggling after recess when down on the scoreboard. It also has to do with Kyle Shanahan always struggling, especially going into the fourth quarter when his teams are down. Remember that dubious statistic of Kyle Shanahan being like 0-35 when trailing by X amount of points going into the fourth quarter? They finally were able to throw that dubious mark in the trash can against Green Bay and then again against the Detroit Lions when the Niners stormed back in the NFC Championship game. So the play calling, Shanahan getting tight, the scheme being just built better when the Niners are ahead as compared to down, all reasons for this. But early down passes in the first 3 quarters, look at where Purdy ranked last year. First in EPA per attempt, number 1 in success rate, number 1 in yards per attempt, number 1 in first down rate, number 1 in rate of passes to gain 20-plus yards, and number 1 in rate of passes to gain 10-plus yards, 15 and 37% on those latter 2 statistics. And then when the Niners threw deep, Purdy was awesome. Number 6 in EPA per attempt, number 5 in success rate, number 4 in yards per attempt at 16.1. As finally, Kyle Shanahan got to see what his offense can look like with the quarterback who can complete a long ball. Hello, Jimmy Garoppolo. And number 3 in first down rate at 59%. Not only, though, has Purdy struggled when down in the second half of games, he has struggled against top defenses. And last year, we certainly saw that. Sharp football analysis with this insight here. It's fair at this point to restate that the Niners played the number 10 easiest schedule of past defenses last year. They played just 4 games against top 10 past defenses a year ago, and they lost 3 of those 4 games. Week 1, they won 30-7 against the Steelers. Purdy was dropping dimes. Week 6 was a loss, 19-17 against the Browns. No Debo there. Week 7 loss against the Vikings, 22-17. No Debo there. And then as we saw on Christmas, Week 16 loss, 33-19 against the Ravens when in the box score, the Niners were pretty even with Baltimore, but they turned the ball over 5 times. In those games, the passing attack produced minus 0.12 EPA per attempt, number 17 in the NFL. They had a 44% success rate. That was still number 6. Yards per attempt was number 7, but the completion rate, 59.1%, number 28. So some good, some bad there. More on this. Another metric they were bottom 5 in was interception rate. Purdy threw 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions in those games. His 6.1% interception rate, number 2 worst, and his touchdown interception rate, 6th worst in the NFL. In the Super Bowl, Purdy was much worse than his in-season averages, plus 0.13 EPA per attempt, 41% success rate, 6.7 yards per attempt, 61% completion rate, and then the touchdown to interception ratio, 1-0. And we know this months removed from that heartbreaking February night. Brock Purdy could have played better in the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy have to do better game planning, scheming up plays, executing plays against tough defenses. But it's almost like sometimes young quarterbacks who don't have a lot of experience under their belt struggle against elite teams. It happens. And I don't think that Kyle Shanahan called or devised his best game plan against the Kansas City Chiefs, but that's a Chiefs team that was one of the best defenses from pole to pole, start to finish in the NFL last year, led by a defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo, who has now won 2 Super Bowls with Kansas City, and then was also winning Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator with the New York Giants. Purdy last year also, he was under pressure on 40% of his throws. That was top 3rd in the NFL. The NFL high, Justin Fields at 49%. And you wonder why I talk about the offensive line on this program quite frequently and why the Niners need to improve it. Because if Brock Purdy wasn't under duress and under pressure for 40% of his throws last year, and the Niners were still the best offense in the National Football League, imagine what they could do with better offensive line play. So some important trends and data, analytics, and statistics that hopefully Kyle Shanahan and Purdy see for how they can improve. And I think that naturally with more experience, Brock Purdy is going to be able to improve, but trailing in games, going up against elite defenses, areas in which and why Brock Purdy struggled a year ago. Let's pop back up this poll question here. If you think Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. If not, I want you to comment why. Thank you so much, as always, for supporting us here on the Niners Report. Short form content, long form content. We do it all. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, make sure you give me a follow on social media. I'm on X at Chase_Senior. Instagram at Chase_Senior. Thanks for rocking with us.